to the Peer Support Podcast. Today's podcast is all about nature and how it can support your mental health, and is presented to you by Rachel, that's me, hello, and Holly,
that's me, hello,
who are peer support workers within the Wellbeing Service. Today's podcast will cover what are peer support workers, nature and our mental health, sharing peer support workers' lived experiences of using nature to support their mental health. We hope that you come away from today's podcast with an understanding of how nature can be used to support our mental health. So just to introduce peer support work, in case you haven't heard of the role before. So peer support workers all have their own experience of living with mental health challenges, and we share our experience of these with others, along with our recovery stories to offer hope. We use our experience of recovery to help people to make sense of what they are going through and to explore what may support them in their recovery. So to start off today's podcast, we're just going to have a think about how being in nature helped at the start of our recovery journeys. And we asked the peer support workers within the service what their experience was of this. So Holly, did you want to sort of start us off with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our peer support workers mentioned sunlight and said just to stand and watch the sunlight or listen to the birds singing reminded them how we are part of a bigger picture, and help to find moments of calm away from thoughts and anxiety, which I can completely relate to. Actually, I know for me, getting sunlight and a bit of sun has been absolutely crucial to my mental health. And unfortunately, that's something that we quite often are lacking in this country, is a bit of sunlight. But I do try and make the most of it when we do have some. Always feel so much better after getting a bit of sun.
Yeah, and even if it's just popping outside for a couple of minutes to take that deep breath, feel the sunlight on your face before it disappears behind a cloud and it rains. It's just nice just to have that moment, isn't it? And
absolutely.
Particularly, we're talking about the start of our recoveries when actually everything is really quite difficult. So those little moments of just finding that few minutes of just, like they say, to watch the sunlight or to watch the sunset, having that calming time can be really, really beneficial. Another thing they suggested was right at the start of their recovery that helped was walking. So making the effort to go outside, perhaps having a proper walk over lunch breaks if they were still working, and making that deal with themselves to get outside every single day. Because, Holly, at the start of our recovery journeys, that's really difficult, isn't it?
It is.
Just putting one foot in front of the other. And if we can make those little efforts, we can make those deals with ourselves to go, do you know what, I'm going to go outside, might only be for 2 minutes, that might be all I can tolerate, but I'm going to walk outside, take that deep breath, see the sunshine, come back in, and that's my deal with what I'm going to do today. Finding those small little moments.
And I know for me, that's something that I definitely still need to work on, actually. We're still working from home, aren't we, Rachel? And I can still go through a whole day and not gone outside for a walk. And, when you do, I don't know about you, but I certainly feel the difference. I notice the difference and how much better I feel when I have that walk and that fresh air.
And like you say, I think it's that fresh air, isn't it? It's not exactly warm enough in my house to have windows open yet downstairs. No. But, just even if it is that sort of few minutes. And Holly, I think gardening was another thing.
Yeah, so another one of our peer support workers did mention gardening and said something to focus on. So it was a distraction from anxiety, and gave them a sense of achievement and purpose, feeling connected, growing vegetables, and helped with money worries as well. I totally relate to this. During the first lockdown, I actually invested in some of my own growing vegetables, and and there's nothing like it. It's so good to get out and grow your own stuff. There's something very therapeutic about doing that, and watching something that you've helped grow, seeing that kind of develop, and really nice feeling.
Yeah, and I think it's what you said, it gave them a sense of achievement and purpose. I've taken these seeds, I've put them into the soil, I've remembered to water them, which, for me is something that doesn't quite always happen, hence gardening isn't really a thing for me. But I mean, in the first lockdown, I found I had some lettuce seeds. So it's like, okay, I'm going to grow me some lettuce.
Lovely.
Let's see what happens. And, I must admit, I never have much hope when I put something in the ground because I know it's not something I'm good at, but I keep trying. So, planted my lettuce, it started to grow, put a little cloche over the top of it, help it grow a bit more, and you're kind of looking each day and you're like, oh, brilliant, you can actually see leaves, and you're thinking it's going to get to a point, I might be able to actually eat that. That's great. Until I took the cloche off and the pigeons had my lettuce.
Oh no.
And I had my sense of achievement was like, how dare you pigeons take my lettuce, but actually it was also that learning opportunity of, don't let the pigeons get your lettuce, Rachel. What can we do next time to do that? And just the simplest thing of seeing something grow and nurturing it it's just so nice, isn't it?
There's definitely something about it, isn't there? And like you said, a good learning curve. I'm kind of similar to you, Rachel. I'm not the best at keeping plants and living things alive. So it's all a bit of a learning curve as well, and a bit of an experiment. So.
Yeah, and kind of learning what you're good at gardening at, and what actually you perhaps need a bit more practice at. But yes, it's a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
And I think another thing that kind of links into that is animals. So one of our peer support workers was saying that spending more time outside actually with their horse enabled them to be engrossed in a different task, and taking that time to take care of something else. I mean, again, like going back to our mutual experience of killing off
yes
but I think it's also it's that time outside, just doing something that is for something else. So whether that's a cat, a dog, a guinea pig, a horse, I don't know, anything else, but actually when you link it into like your garden, it's like, well, I need to remove those weeds, I need to water, all these different things. Actually having a task that's not involved with what's going on in your head can actually be really, really beneficial and very supportive.
Absolutely.
So
and again, sorry, Rachel, I was just going to say, again, completely relate, because I myself got a cat throughout lockdown, and luckily for her, I'm much better at keeping her alive. She's absolutely fine. I just want to point out. But yeah, it's been lovely having something else to focus on and look after, as particularly throughout this period, but beyond this period as well, and having something else in the house, that company, I guess, as well, and that companionship.
And I think, your mentioning of sort of lockdown is actually leads quite nicely into our next part, which is the challenges of using nature, to support in our recovery, and actually how we've overcome them. So do you want to sort of start us off with that one, Ol?
Yeah, so one of our peer support workers said that limiting how many times we could go out, when we're used to going out several times, and considering walking times to fit around other commitments. So I know that for me, the lockdown was like for all of us was very challenging in the sense that we were very limited, weren't we, to what we could and couldn't do. Absolutely. But actually finding ways around that and adapting that, and that was possible.
Yeah, and
Even
and kind of seeing that external barrier as something that can be overcome.
yes,
You know, sort of little tweaks. I mean, another thing our peer support workers were talking about was if we had, you know, long-term conditions.
yeah,
So, you know, things that we are contending with all day, every day. And, you know, so one of them might be pain, you know, and then sort of thinking, well, you know, all my friends want to go for a walk, but I'm in quite a bit of pain.
yeah,
You know, I guess it can be, you know, the simplest option can be, well, actually, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to sit here.
yes,
You know. But
yeah,
actually, then thinking, well, how can I see the strength in what I can do? So not focusing on what I can't do, but kind of thinking, okay, I've got pain levels. They can fluctuate. So actually, I can walk so far. So I'm going to join
that's
my
right.
friends, you know, for that walk so far, and then I'm going to sit on the bench and, you know, might enjoy the scenery where I'm sitting, or, you know, they said they might sort of, you know, read a book or something perhaps. Their friends would go off for the rest of the walk and then collect them
Yeah,
on the way back. And actually, I thought that was a brilliant suggestion because, you know, like I said, you're looking at the strength and what you can do as opposed to those external barriers and the things that you can't. And actually,
yeah, it's a great example of how any disability or long-term condition. I'm sure I've mentioned on this podcast before that I am living with a disability, and it is about adapting and finding the strengths in the challenges. And you know, and I think this perfectly highlights that no long-term condition or disability should ever stop you from enjoying nature and kind of you know, in any way lessening that experience for you. You should still get to have that experience.
And it is, isn't it? It's looking at that barrier and thinking, you know, how can I smash that down, or
Yeah,
how can I overcome that, you know, without that just becoming a wall that I can't do
definitely.
anything about. And I think one of the barriers that we can come across is motivation, you know, especially when we're first starting out in our recovery. You know, those days when you just like, oh, I don't want to do anything, I can't be bothered, it's not going to happen. And I think, you know, like you've already mentioned, the Great British weather, you know, that motivation can actually completely disappear
Yes.
on a cold, wet day in winter,
Yes.
or, you know, if we're having a down day and actually today's not so good. But then again, kind of thinking, okay, that's the barrier. What can I do with that? You know, where's the strength in what I can do? And you know, it might be that I go, right, Holly, okay, I've got no motivation to go out for a walk, so shall we go out for a walk together? And we're going to do it on this day at this time, and I'm going to be there. So regardless of what my motivation is like that day, actually having someone to go with would encourage me, because
Absolutely.
I don't want you to be standing somewhere getting chilly and wet, Holly, because I can't be bothered getting out of bed that day. You know, I'm going to turn up, and actually it's going to make me more likely to do it. And then, you know, we talked about with gardening, that sense of achievement, but that sense of achievement of, goodness me, my motivation wasn't there. I didn't want to go see Holly, not because she's not fabulous to be around, because she is, obviously, but because I don't want to. And, you know, that sense of achievement that actually you've got over that barrier is fantastic, and actually helps to increase, you know, your motivation. So,
I
like
completely
I said,
agree.
we've already mentioned the Great British weather. So do our peer support workers have any sort of experiences of that, and how that affected?
They do. So yeah, we all know what the British weather can be like, don't we? So the first thing they've said, which I think is brilliant advice, is wear a coat. So there's difficulty on different surfaces, convert to pavements, and walking, and check out people's gardens. Again, another brilliant tip to get ideas or just enjoy. When it's cold weather, enjoying nature from a window, or turning attention to houseplants. Bring bring nature into the home. So all great examples there. I just love that first one of wear a coat. It's such an obvious one, isn't it? But I have to admit, I'm not always that good at dressing for the weather. So yeah, brilliant tips there. And
and like you say, if that brilliant British weather has brought us a lot of rain and those wonderful surfaces that you walk on in weather that's okay actually make them difficult and make you think, I don't want to walk in mud because I think I'm going to be too worried about falling over or hurting myself. Again, that barrier can come up and you can go, right, well, I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely.
But then actually looking at the strength of, okay, well, that mud's not going to be great, but I can still walk. So I'm gonna, go on the pavements, and I just love the whole checking out people's gardens and enjoying what's around you. I love doing that because there might be that like, oh, I've got to sort that out in the garden. How could I do it? I've got no idea. And then you kind of see like, oh, I hadn't thought of doing that, or just experiencing the colours and also bringing, the suggestion of bringing the outside in. The weather's rubbish, your motivation's not there, or your long-term condition is acting up. Looking out of the window. I mean, I've got well, I haven't got cats, but I've got two cats that like to wander into my garden and sort of stare at me. You know how cats do, like,
yes.
What are you doing in my garden? No idea where they come from or where they go. It's kind of like, I don't know, it seems like my garden is like a thoroughfare to go somewhere else. But I do enjoy it when they pop in and they stare at me, and you just go, it's just that I'm nowhere near them. I'm in the house and I can see them through the door, but it's just nice, just for those
popping by to say hello.
Well, that's what I think, Holly. They just come to see how I'm getting on, and that's all good. And so, those are the challenges, or some of the challenges we might be facing trying to use nature to support us in our recovery. And then we kind of asked our peer support workers, well, how do you continue to use nature in your recovery now? You've gone through this journey. Nature has been one of the strategies that you've had, or one of the places actually that you go to support yourself. Actually, how do you do that now? How do you use it in this present moment? And Holly, did we have some sort of ideas from our peer support workers there?
Yes, so one of our peer support workers mentioned about taking notice, taking everything around them and going out into the garden or a walk every day and taking time to be within the moment. So grounding, which is a brilliant tip there. And I'll admit something that I'm still working on myself, the hopping around, being in the present moment and taking notice is definitely something that's an ongoing progress for myself, but so good for us if we can try and practice to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, the suggestions we had for the weather, or, looking at sort of other people's gardens, it's actually taking notice of what's around you. Nature changes so slowly but also so quickly at the same time, particularly when things are coming into bloom on trees or on birds, or the opposite way around in the autumn when things are falling off and stuff. And actually the ability to take notice and taking it in our busy lives is it's a skill, isn't it?
It is a skill.
Yeah, and like you say, Holly, you're working on that, and I'm actually working on the next suggestion, which is being active. So, in this world of being sat in front of a computer screen all day, it can be hard actually to find that time to be active, or if you're me, actually find the motivation to do it. But some of our peer support workers are doing stuff like cold water swimming, or I think that's also wild swimming, isn't it? Going out and doing that, where they're able to. Some others are going running, and not just going running for the exercise part of that running, but actually really enjoying seeing the environment that they're running through changing. And again, the suggestion is being out whatever the weather. So again, that appropriate clothing. But yeah, just enjoying it, thinking, right, I'm going for my run, it's raining. Well, I'll enjoy the sensation of the rain. It will be okay. Or, going back to walking. So, one of our peer support workers was saying that actually in times of stress, that might be a very fast walk, because when you've got
That's true.
that physical stress and that energy that's powering you along. But then they would say that actually as the walking release that stress, they will then slow down and then start to connect more with what's going on around them. And I think that's a great suggestion as well, because you're getting that stress out of you, and then you're then that's out of the way, and then you're taking that notice and you're making those connections, and that's
brilliant point there, I think.
And do you have some other suggestions, Holly?
Yeah, so another one of our peer support workers mentioned water, which I am all for. I don't know what it is about water, whether it's the sea or a river, but something is just draws me to water. I find it very calming and therapeutic, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. There is just something about it, I think, isn't there? And so, yeah, all for that one.
Yeah, and I quite like a rough sea. So it's probably a strange thing to say, but I actually like it when the sea is doing those massive crashing waves, because for some reason that has a very calming effect on me. I think I look at it in terms of, the sea's feeling it at the minute, and I'm feeling it at the minute, and actually it's just nice to just to watch that and be near that, and sort of different kind of things for different people, isn't it? And another suggestion we had, to continue to use nature in their recovery now is making time that you do it, and I think that can be one of the trickiest things, particularly when you've been on this recovery journey and you're getting to the point where you're kind of thinking, do you know what, I'm functioning better than I was, I'm thinking more clearly, I'm doing more, you might be back at work, might be socializing, stuff like that, but still actually making the time to connect with nature, so like we talked about, the cats coming into the garden and staring at me, that's only it's not even a 30-second thing, to be fair, but they are, we're making that moment to go, you all right? Yeah, okay, good. Even though it is a cat, but those things we talked about, in terms of enjoying the sunset or enjoying sunlight, just making those, even if it's the tiniest amount of time, making those connections, even if you're really tired.
Absolutely.
Or, like we talked about, the motivation isn't there, but actually taking the time to look out your window, or enjoy those house plants if you've kept them alive. Unlike
Everyone managed to keep them alive, which we probably haven't.
which we haven't, but like we say, we're a work in progress, and we'll both work on that, Holly. I'm sure this time next year we might have kept a little bit more things alive in our gardens, but also I think actually, people were suggesting taking fresh air, and I think that just links in so much with busy lives, having to work remotely. I don't know about you, Holly, I don't think you mentioned it to me earlier, you can just be sat in front of your computer all day working,
without even realizing it, and not got any fresh air, and fresh air has just become so important to me throughout the last year to stay well, and really
and again, even if it's I think I did it the other day after I'd done like a lot of training in one day, and it wasn't a hugely warm day, but it was like, I don't have the time in my working day to go for that walk, but I'm just going to open the back door, and had that wonderful cold air coming in for about half an hour. I think I managed to tolerate it, and it was just like, I'm going to take that breath, and it's like, it's just going to be really nice. And I think it is trying, however you're able to continue to put that into daily lives, isn't it, really?
And like you said before, it doesn't have to take all the time in the world. It can just be a few minutes.
Can well. perhaps, first thing in the morning when you've opened the curtains kind of thing. Yeah, just finding the smallest amount of time. So, yeah, just to sort of bring the podcast all together. So we have shared with you some peer support worker lived experience of using nature to support their mental health. Our next podcast will be looking at how volunteering can support our mental health.
And you can find links for today's podcast in the podcast notes.
So if you're listening to this podcast today and you'd like to refer yourself to the Wellbeing Service, you can do so by using the Wellbeing Service website or contacting us via the telephone. If you're currently having treatment within the Wellbeing Service and would like to have peer support, then please do speak to your therapist who can make the referral for you. So I'd just like to say a big thank you for listening and joining us for today's podcast. Hope you find it useful and hope you'll be able to join us again for our next podcast, which will be focusing on how volunteering can support our mental health. So I'll say goodbye from me. Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me, and thank you all very much for listening and tuning in.